So one of the issues that I've had for a very long time, especially as I've gotten older, is finding a good pair of jeans. When I was young, this wasn't a problem for me, but now that comfort's the number one factor that I look for, I just hadn't found anything that worked as something I could wear all day, every day, until now. Men, if you hate khakis like I do, your time has come. The perfect jean was created by a conglomerate of mostly imperfect men and a couple of extra perfect ladies who set out on a mission to find a jean that we can wear no matter what we're doing. Whether you're lounging on the couch, working outside, salsa dancing, doing yoga poses, or dunking a basketball, this is a pair of jeans that is built for your life. I picked up a pair skeptical at first because I'd been let down so many times before, but I've got to tell you, these jeans slip on like your favorite pair of sweatpants. You know the ones. Once I had my pair, I reached out to the team at Perfect Jean and asked them if I could run an ad on my show. And they were kind enough to offer you, yes, you listening right now, a special 25% off discount code that you can use when you pick up your very own pair. Don't be like me and pay full price. Take advantage and pick up the best pair of jeans you've ever worn right now. Head to theperfectjean.nyc and enter the discount code 25FOR-FRIENDS at checkout to get 25% off your very own pair of perfect jeans. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight. I'm excited for this.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's funny for me. This interview is a long time coming. It's like one of those conversations that in the back of my mind I always wanted to have, but I didn't know that I'd ever be able to have it because I didn't know how this would all work. But I've been a fan of yours for a long time. Afternoon Advice, Tiffany Granath show, that was a staple for me. I'm sure you've heard this many, many times before, but it's a staple for me for a long time. And,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Obviously, you were a big part of that show. And I've actually been catching up on The Dirt on iHeartRadio in the last 3 or 4 days or so. I was listening to it for a while, and then I stopped, and then I'm listening to it again. So many hats you've got. So we'll get into all of it. But for those that might not be familiar, can you sort of give us a little about your professional background up to this point?
Yeah. So the shows you were talking about were the Tiffany Granath show was the big one, and Afternoon Advice with the same host. Tiffany just got her title named show. We were on Sirius XM since the beginning. XM and then Sirius XM. It was a decade of working together in radio. We're still working together. We still do a podcast together on a platform called Connect Pal, and mostly just kind of a BS show where we catch up on life, as you know. Not that much towards the advice that she used to give, even though we do talk about life topics, but it's not so much caller based as it used to be when we were on Sirius XM. But was doing radio for well over a decade together, still doing it. And then when we left Sirius XM, now I'm not only doing the podcast with her, but I'm also doing a lot of writing.
Yes, and we'll get into that for sure in a little bit. I want to talk about sort of some of the stuff you've produced. So my wife produces all of our podcasts, and she's producing our documentary series in addition to coordinating all of the shoots that we do. The list goes on and on.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's funny, like when people see someone's name attached to a producer credit, they tend to think that it's just like a physical credit, nothing more. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit about like what goes into producing a show, because people don't know, right? They just see like, producer, executive producer, and they don't know what goes into that. Can you explain all that for us?
Yeah, it's so not glamorous.
Right. Yeah.
So, every producer, obviously, in whatever profession they're in, is different. But as a radio producer, you're on it's the grind every single day. And depending the content that you're producing, sometimes your phone is never ending, just jamming. Everything from daily schedules to producing not only, so it's like a pyramid. You've got the base of like what your day is going to look like. And then every show has to be scheduled out from talking points to guest lists to, what commercials are going to be doing. Like it just depends on what the details are of your day, and every day is different. So you've got 5 minutes of, filler for news, and then 5 minutes of filler for, whatever topic you want to hold on to, 15 minutes for guests. And I used to tell people my life was really, you live by a clock. Because when you're in a studio, you go in and there's countdown clocks in every room you work in. And I was producing our daily drive, like from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. was my block. And so I lived and breathed in a windowless studio with a countdown clock, and we had to have content filler available for every single second of our day.
Wow.
And at one point we weren't producing commercials, so that would give us a small break, but the last couple of years we were producing our own commercials, so that's extra, like writing and putting those drops in. And if you don't have, like, my life was very Excel oriented, like everything is an Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah.
And it still is to this day. But if you don't have it scheduled out, it quickly becomes chaos.
Yeah.
So there's a team of you always working together, always making sure that clock is filled, and making sure that and on top of everything, you're entertaining people.
Yeah, sure. Wow. Yeah. And I gives me much more appreciation for what my wife does, because she's doing it sort of on her own, and just like coordinating all these physical shoots in different locations. We're shooting a lot of museums and things like that. It can be very difficult. I can imagine just sort of like having to decompress at the end of the day.
Well, there's a lot of wine involved and very little sleep. But the thing about, like, what your wife is doing, I mean, when you go on a location shoot, that's a whole other element.
Yeah.
And I'm not even getting into, like, even the whole, like, managing your budgets and doing all the numbers for a show and making sure everything, that's like a whole other thing that you have to do when you're not in the studio.
Right.
Doing all the background work of making sure that everyone is, got their hours in, and you're logging time cards. There's all this like administrative work. So yeah, I mean, there's so much. And if your wife is doing location shoots, she's got a whole other fun day.
Yeah, she's got the most thankless job, I think, of everybody. And
it's
not fun. Not fun all the time. I mean, it's I'm sure she has her, she has her fun, but it's a lot of work. It really is.
It is a lot of work. I get it.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, for people that kind of listen to the Tiffany Granath show, how did that come? How did you guys sync up initially? Like, how was that show sort of born? I mean, I know you mentioned like it kind of morphed into like a different show. Kind of, she got her own namesake on the show and everything. But how did that whole thing start for you guys?
So Tiffany was on the air for about a year and a half. So everyone out there who doesn't know who Tiffany Granath is, she came from Playboy TV. Mm-hmm. And then she was doing another show on the network. And I got the job about a year and a half. And it's really funny. I love telling this story. I got a job about a year and a half into her getting the job.
Yeah.
And I was straight out of college. Actually, I was almost out of college. And when I got the job, she wasn't there. She actually had laryngitis my first week.
Oh, man.
And they had guest hosts.
Yeah.
And I only saw this photo of her because when you walk in, there was this beautiful photo of her that was from floor to ceiling. It was gorgeous.
Wow.
So there was these beautiful photos from floor to ceiling, and that's all I got to look at, this host that had laryngitis, and I wasn't going to meet her, but I am her new producer. And the executives were like, oh, yeah, so you're going to be working with Tiffany, and we just want to warn you, like, she's super difficult. She's a major diva. Just give her what she wants. Every time you, so as part of a producer, I pulled all the research and I pulled all the guest information, the research on topics. I would like highlight things. I would type out all the notes, like make sure she has bullet points, like everything was in order. So, and I would deliver that to her. At least this is the kind of producer I am. I would deliver that her in a package, and then we would review it for her show.
Wow.
That's really like what I was planning.
Yeah.
And that's really how we did it for the next 10 plus years. But in this moment, I was like, oh, okay. They were like, yeah, you know, those packets you're planning to give her, she's just going to throw it away. Like, don't even be insulted. Like, they were giving me all, and I was like, who is this woman that I just got attached to?
Yeah.
Who is she? And so, the week comes that she's feeling better. She comes in and she looks at me and she's like, it's so nice to meet you. She gives me a big hug. And we had like this instant love for each other. Now, she still intimidated the hell out of me. I was not even out of college yet, and it was my first radio job.
Yeah.
And I was in film school. I wasn't even in radio school. And here's this like incredible talent in front of me. And I'm thinking, oh my God, is she faking this? But the truth was, like, she just got this bad rap, and or these certain producers wanted to like give her a hard time for, you know, and tease her. But it, for the next 10 years, like, so we did that show, and then her partner actually retired and moved away. And then we launched on Sirius XM, and we were told, because of her popularity, when Sirius XM merged, she got the Tiffany Granath show. And it was phenomenal. It was 5 days a week, 4 hours a day. And every day we felt like, God, you know, even though some of her topics were taboo, we felt like at the end of the day, maybe we helped one person.
Oh, sure.
Topics that we were discussing, like maybe one relationship benefited from it. If you'd never heard the Tiffany Granath show, it was basically like Dr. Laura on crack. Like, it was just
that's a good element. Yeah.
It was very blunt and very on the other side of the spectrum, where she's a little strict, but Tiffany was very like open and all about like, you know, live your life. So, and she still is. So yeah, I mean, we just bonded. We truly became sisters and we still are. I mean, I talk to that woman every other day. If it's not on the phone, it's on text message. And, but yeah, it just kept growing from there. We traveled all over the country together.
Yeah, that makes me so happy to hear that you guys are still in contact and everything. Because you know, when the show stops and people don't, you know, people were so invested in you, both of you, all of you, that, you know, they kind of sometimes feel wonder, well, what happened? And so to hear you say that you guys are still in contact and you still chat and you still talk and you're still recording together, even that's fantastic.
Yeah, and she, you know, she moved to Arizona a couple of years ago, which I hate her for. I'm still trying to convince her to move back because I miss her.
Yeah.
But she moved to Arizona. But yeah, we still, like I said, we still do our podcast together. We, you know, at least we try to get in there once a week. But we're talking every day. She's, like I said, she's my family.
You know, it's funny, as you're talking about that, you know, I have a whole new appreciation for sort of the show, because what I loved about it was the casualness and sort of like the organic flow that the show followed. I mean, it felt like it, you know, it obviously wasn't scripted or anything, but just it felt like it was just a really organic show. I mean, was that sort of in the creation process as you guys started talking about it? I mean, what was the structure that you wanted to follow? Just a casual, organic show like that?
The studio, if they had their way, we were never going to be organic. We were going to be very structured. We were going to be their way. We were going to only talk about certain topics. But then that's where the beautiful diva comes out in her. And she basically was like, I'm going to actually do things my way because I know what my audience loves, and they love an organic show.
Yeah.
And she really fought for that. I mean, every day sometimes we would end a show and there would be like criticism.
Yeah.
And so she, no matter what kind of criticism she got from the top, or even some of the listeners, would email us if we got a little like too comfortable. She really stuck to her guns on what she felt like the audience wanted. And I really think that's why we were successful. And as her producer, I am there to support and nurture that. As a radio producers are interesting because you have your executives who are dictating what they want for their channels. But
Yeah.
as a radio producer on the line where you're in the studio every day with your talent, my job was, sure, I can try to direct her in a way that the studio wants us to direct her, but I also want to trust her talent. And
Right.
I want to trust her creative. So if she's going to talk 30 minutes about her dog, I want to believe that the audience kind of thinks that's funny and they love listening to her talk about Emmy pooping on her floor or something because
Yeah.
it shows that she's a real human.
Right.
Luckily, we had an incredible boss that adored her as well. But we'd get hell here and there that, for one thing or another.
Are there any great behind the scenes stories that maybe you've never told or just standout memories for you on the show?
Well, it's funny that you say that because I was just looking at Facebook and Tiffany just Facebooked a 10-year-old memory of when the toilet seat broke. And so, do you know that story?
I don't. I haven't heard that one. It sounds great,
So
though.
I'm actually dying right now because 10 years ago today, Tiffany was in the middle of a show and she ran. We had like these 2-minute breaks, and the bathrooms could not have been further from the studio. And she just Facebooked the photo of the broken toilet.
Oh
But
my God.
she runs down the hall in her frantic state to get to the bathroom. And she sat on the toilet.
Oh
And
God.
the toilet seat had been broken, but no one, the toilet lid that you
Yeah,
sit
yeah.
on. So guys lift that because,
Right.
right. But
Obvious reasons.
but women need to sit on it, that part, not the lid.
Right.
So someone had broken it and not like put a sign on the toilet. So again, 2-minute break. The toilets could not be farther from our studio. We literally had to run if we wanted to make it back.
Oh
So
my
she's
God.
frantic state to run to the bathroom. She goes in, sits down, and the toilet snaps and she falls.
Oh my God.
And
Oh my
she's
God.
running. So I'm thinking, oh my God, we have 15 seconds and she's not back. So I go down the hallway. She's running back, screaming at me, Marie, the toilet's broken.
Oh my
I fell in
God.
the toilet.
Oh, what a
Someone's
trooper.
going to kill themselves. And I am dying. I'm
Oh
still
my-
dying. And
what a trooper.
this picture just brought back that great memory.
Oh my God. We got to put that in the show notes now.
Yeah, the
Oh,
toilet incident was one of my favorites.
that is
Yeah.
great. That is so great.
Yeah. I mean, a
I-
gross one that came up just recently was that I made her pee in a Starbucks cup. But
Oh my God.
but for obvious reasons, not because the bathroom was so far away, but
Right.
because she believes that she tinkles cold. And I'm like, you don't go to the bathroom cold. You'd be dead. So one day I made her pee in a cup to prove.
Oh, good Lord. What you won't do to prove something, right?
No, I know. God, we had so many other non-toilet related fun topics.
Yeah, I bet. Well, 10 years.
But because that Facebook picture just came up, I was like,
Oh my God, that's such a that's
Terrible.
such a classic story. It's a
Terrible.
classic story, and it just seems like it fits the show too for whatever reason. As I'm listening to the show, I remember listening to it. It's just like, it just seems like that fits the show.
yeah. Oh God, I could have totally thought of better memories than that. But this damn picture is staring at me on Facebook.
Oh, that's great. That's a great story. That's a funny story. I was going to ask you: is the show archived anywhere that people can get today? I'm just curious. I always wanted to ask you the guys that actually.
No, after we left SiriusXM, we went to a place called The Joint, and then we went to a place called T Radio V. And then we took our content ourselves and we're on Connect Pal. But no, the show, so we have streams on, so from T Radio V and The Joint, our streams are on, I should know this. I cannot believe I'm forgetting, but what's that platform? It's not iHeartRadio, which is one of them, but it's Spreaker.
Spotify?
No,
Spreaker.
Spreaker.
Spreaker. Yeah, okay.
So Tiffany has a huge archive on Spreaker and iHeartRadio. I have an archive on Spreaker, but then we merged everything on Connect Pal.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll put links for that tonight. Yeah, so people can catch them, because I strongly recommend if you can go back into the archive and listen to anything that you guys have done. It's well worth it, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was always entertaining. It's like I understand. When I started listening to the show, and this is a long time ago for me, obviously too, but I mean, I started listening to it, and I kind of understand how entertainment can sort of get you through difficult times and kind of get you through things, because it takes it's like a vacation for your brain. So I mean, it kind of like it's almost like watching a movie or reading a good novel or something. It's escapism. So for me, listening to that show and just listening to other people call in and talk about their stuff, and just kind of, it's a very it offers a really good form of escapism. I think as all media does, good entertainment does anyway.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you enjoyed it so much.
Absolutely, a lot of fun. Now, I want to ask you, just sort of, when did you start writing? Because I know that you obviously been writing for a little while now, but when did you start doing that?
So I've been writing since I was a teenager, and I always had this passion for writing. I went to film school and I studied screenwriting, which I thought, okay, I'm going to go write movies. And then I was always writing movies, trying for screenplays and television scripts and blah, 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 all through my radio years. And I had a friend who is the one who said he kind of was the one who inspired me to take those stories and turn them into books, because Hollywood is a brutal business, and I just wasn't like hitting anything. And then of course radio, and then I would hit things, and then those things sat on shelves like most screenplays do. And then radio took over, right? I mean, just took over.
Right.
And that became my life for a long time. And then I had the friend, and he was a published author. He's a novelist. And he said, you have these stories, and I know that you want to do this. Why don't you just put them into books? And it went from there.
Yeah. And a whole nother career is born.
Yeah.
What are some of the books you've written? Let's give out some of the titles for people that are going to be listening to this.
So I have my Fractured series. There's 3 books in it now, and I'm hoping for the 4th one to be released. It's an apocalyptic survival series, driven by several points of view. And then I have the Colony series, which is 5 short stories. I know a lot of wonderful people out there want me to continue that one. And that's another apocalyptic one. I'm going to turn around and look at these things. I have a novella. It's a horror ghost story. And then I have a couple of pieces where I'm part of bigger anthologies with a lot of other horror writers. And most recently, called Under Her Black Wings. It's the 2020 Women of Horror anthology, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and speaking of the anthologies, like and the people that different stories kind of making up one book. I grew up on Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I mean, I love those books, and so like I can appreciate the anthologies. I really love that. I love the short stories. I love kind of, it's like just a quick read you can kind of read, but it's like jarring in some cases, some of these stories.
I am too. So I started the Colony series and the Fractured series at the exact same time. And it wasn't until last year a publisher hit me up. They were producing the 19 Gates of Hell with 19 authors, 19 short story or 18 authors and 19 short stories. I think one of the guys has 2 stories in there.
Gotcha.
But 19 Gates of Hell approached me, and I had never even thought about being part of an anthology. It just, I was so focused on these other books, and I'm having a ton of fun writing these quick bits. And I do too. I scary stories to tell in the dark is one of my favorites.
Oh yeah.
And I just like the diverse storytelling you get in the book, right?
Right.
You get so many cool different feelings and characters and storylines, and it's really fun to get that change of flavor every few pages.
Absolutely. And then you mentioned the Fractured series, so it's Outbreak, The Other Side, and No Way Out. Those are the 3, and we'll have links to those as well. But I want to discuss, I mean, without going into spoiler territory for people who want to pick up the books or who listen to this and want to grab the books afterwards, can you give us like an overall plot of that story?
So Fractured is following a family. In book 1, you get a sense of who the family is, but you're really following that they get separated and they're trying to find each other. That's this. And so in book 1 and book 2, Fractured, Outbreak, and then Fractured, The Other Side, are about this, mostly these 2 main characters, these sisters. And there's a ton of other really awesome, if I might say, characters in there that you're reading with, but you're really following the fact that they're trying to find each other.
Right.
And when all hell breaks loose. Now, so you have those 2, the first 2 books. And and this is kind of breaking news for you. I have not told my own audience this.
Okay. All right. Let's hear it. I'm excited.
So I'm just gonna go for it.
Awesome.
This part isn't, but book 3, you actually get a whole nother viewpoint of characters. You get a whole new cast of characters, and you're also introduced to what's potentially your antagonists in it, the villains.
Ooh,
So, and it's not just the bandits that that they're running into in books 1 and 2, but this is a bigger picture, which is like you're starting to see alliances form between military and civilians and people trying to like keep humanity, and this military guy in book 3 who's trying to control it.
yeah.
So we've got that book 3, you actually don't even meet again book 1 and 2 characters.
Oh wow.
But the fun breaking news is in book 4, we're going to be seeing every one again.
Oh, that's cool. So is book 4 meant to be the end, or have you kind of decided that yet?
Well, I've decided it, and then my the guy that one of my editors is laughing and saying, "Yeah, let's not decide that yet." So I'm thinking that it's the end of the story. But it's book 4. I'm hoping to bring back everyone you love, because I got a lot of shit for that. They're like, where are my characters? This is book 3 and I don't know these people.
Right.
But I really love these people in book 3. And it's actually one of my favorite stories of like one of my favorite crews. But I do like my 1 and 2 book characters too. And especially, I promise, the dog is coming back, like Mayhem. Everyone loves the dog, and so I'm excited to.
That's how I feel like when I watch movies, like, kill men, women, children, kill them all. The dog, don't touch the dog. Or if it's like a horse or something, like, don't kill the horse. I can't. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, but if you ever want to, especially if you have like an affection for animals, do not watch the movie Warhorse. That was the Steven Spielberg film. Oh my Lord, I couldn't. I was openly weeping probably 20 minutes into it, and it's just a very difficult. And it's true. It's a true story. So especially with stuff like that, it's just very difficult for
I
me
can't
personally.
do it. It's like, The Walking Dead, even watching The Walking Dead was hard for me. But really, I actually got emails and people wrote it in the reviews of the book. Thank you for not like, thank you for loving Mayhem. I
Yeah.
love Mayhem. Mayhem is the dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Great
Just
name for a
like,
dog, by the
I
way.
would just thank you. I'm just like, I'm glad you guys like the dog.
Yeah, a little it's attention to details. That dogs are characters. I mean, I remember watching I Am Legend in theaters, and
Oh gosh.
I I mean I won't I watched it a single time. I won't watch it again, but I mean I think it's the writing, it's the acting, but the moment with the dog. I mean, if anyone hasn't seen it, I won't spoil it for you, but it rips your heart and your soul out of your body when you're watching it. It really does,
Oh, I
especially
just
the way they, Will Smith acts it, and just the way you grow, so you fall in love with the dog. It's like a full blown character, obviously, and it's very difficult to watch that movie.
it's awful. It's funny on there was this post on Facebook. Someone said, "What is your favorite Disney villain?"
Hmm.
And everybody lists all the villains, right?
Yeah,
And I go, "Hello, man. The
yeah,
man who killed Bambi,
yeah,
Bambi's mother."
yeah.
I'm like, that action was unforgivable. It
Right.
was the worst villain in the history of Disney because as a child, I watched that. And to this day, I have not seen Bambi again.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't watch that movie again because when that first scene happened, it literally hit me.
yeah.
And to this day, that is the most unforgivable character in Disney history to me because they killed Bambi's
Yeah,
mom.
yeah. It's very hard. I mean, even as a grown man, I'm sitting here watching like we watched the new Lady and the Tramp, the one on Disney Plus, the live action film.
I haven't seen that
Oh, it's
one.
good. It's good. You should check it out. I mean, they do a
Oh,
really good job. It's pretty faithful to to the animation and everything, but they expand on Tramp's story, and it's gonna fuck you up. I'm telling you right now, it's bad. It's really bad. I'm sitting here, 37-year-old man. I'm weeping. My wife's looking at me like, are you crying? Yes, I'm crying.
I'm not
And it-
watching it now. I'm
it's
not.
brutal.
I can't be. I can't be traumatized again by animals.
Disney. I'm telling you, Disney is bad. Fox and the Hound is another one. It's like I can't watch that either. It's like there's certain films that Land Before Time. I could go on and on. Anything with
Oh God.
I just can't do it. It's just
Yeah.
it's not in. I
It,
don't have it in me. I can't do it.
it's so hard for me, and even like as I get older too. I mean, it's just I'm gonna be 40 this year. I feel like the older I get, the more emotional I am on every little detail about those
Yeah.
types of stories.
Yeah, they yeah, they hit hard, and especially in, if you have to go through something like that in real life, I can't imagine, I mean, we went through it with my kid, and it's very difficult, animals are just, they're part of our souls, so
Yeah.
as you
I
well
mean,
know,
I
yeah.
just lost my 17-and-a-half-year-old doggy.
I'm
I
sorry.
know.
Yeah.
Oh, it was time, but it was one of those things that they're part of you.
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
I've been there. I'm going to tell you a story, a story right now before we get into the next wrapping up tonight. But I wanted, so like we had a dash hound. I think he was 17 or 18. Yeah, and he passed. I mean, when my son was with him for the last like 3 or 4 years of his life, and he passed. Just really was really hard for them. Really hard for me because I had him since he was like 3. So I've
Oh,
he's with me my whole life. I didn't really get as a father, like I didn't, you know, I started thinking about stuff my dad used to tell me. It's like, when you're a father, you don't, if something happens like that, you won't have time to grieve because you have to take care of your wife, you have to take care of your son or your kids. You don't get to grieve until much later. And we got another dash hound. He's 2 years old now, but I remember, and we have this on recording. Actually, it's actually on Facebook as well. We surprised my son. My son had no idea we were going to give him a new dog, and he was the exact replica of our original dog, just a very younger version. And we did this whole thing where my wife got into the bathtub, and she put, she hid in the bathtub and everything, like in the shower, under the shower curtain. And then we had the door closed, and had my son say like abracadabra or something like that, and he opens the door and the dog is there, and he just loses his shit. And I couldn't, I was not ready. And I found out later he thought that his original dog came back to him, and that I couldn't have, it didn't even occur to me that he would think that as a kid, that, you know, that his original dog came home. And it was like, oh my God, I felt terrible,
Oh,
but at the same time, I'm
wow.
glad he has a, you know, he loves that dog, goes up there everywhere, sleeps with him now, like he goes everywhere with him. But
Oh,
yeah, it's hard. It's you know, and as an adult, I mean, I choke up now just thinking about it. It's like, it's a really hard moment, but I'm glad we got it on film, because it's something he'll see when he gets older, and he'll remember forever.
yeah, that's so special.
It
That's
really
awesome
is.
that you got it on film.
Yeah, we were very lucky for that. Now, now that we're good and thoroughly depressed, we can wrap up. You know, kind of get into the last part. I want to ask you, in a sense, we're going from that to horror, but like I want to ask you like about about that topic, because I mean, you're writing obviously in a very specific genre. We touched on it tonight. When you read reviews for the books, and you touched on the reviews too, like the resounding sort of agreement is you really nail horror like in a special way. Like, so for a writer, is there like a sense of like vindication there? Because horror is hard to do. Like when you read those reviews, I think one reviewer wrote like short form horror is hard to do, and you nail it. Like you do such a great job. Like, is there like vindication there for you as a writer when those reviews come out and you read those?
I breathe a little easier. Um, I mean, it's like it's really deeply personal to any type of artist to be able to get that feedback.
Yeah,
I'm so like humbled by when people say those things. I love writing horror.
yeah,
I love it. I love watching it. I love going to, scary haunted houses. I
hmm,
love scary things. So the fact that I've loved it since I was a child and
yeah,
probably too young. And so I think that because I have such this deep appreciation for it, it feels so good and I'm so appreciative. But I do hold my breath. I don't really know because I don't think I write anything good.
your own worst critic.
I am my own worst critic. I beat myself up over every page.
Yeah,
And so when I get at least one compliment, it
hmm,
feels really good.
I bet.
Because I'm my own, I'm really awful to myself. Like, for example, I've been killing myself over this one thing. And literally will sit at my kitchen table, drumming my fingers on the table, going, just stop writing this. Just
Yeah,
move on.
yeah,
This is not working for you. So, yeah, we beat ourselves up.
mm,
And so but yeah, I mean, that kind of compliment is amazing. And it
yeah.
makes me want to keep writing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and you know, I have a deep respect for authors, writers of any kind when they come on the show and we talk. I always ask the same question to everybody, because I think everybody's got a very interesting, specific take based off of their own experience. But how do you handle writer's block? Like when you write yourself into a corner, or you just can't figure out how is this going to end? Where am I going to go? Or you, like you just mentioned, you have to throw something out you wrote, or you don't like it. I mean, how do you get over that, I guess, as a writer?
I don't. So I
Very honest and raw. I love it.
so when I have writer's block and I just cannot fight through like if I can't get to point A to point B,
Yeah.
and I know that I'm just missing something. So sometimes, and a lot of authors will not do this, but I have a group of author friends who I send my stuff to.
Yeah.
And I say, can you beat this up for me for just a little? Beat it up. Tell me what I'm missing.
Yeah,
So
sure.
sometimes I'll go that way. Sometimes I'll pitch an idea to friends
Hmm.
who are creatives in whatever they're doing. And I'm like, I'm going to pitch you something. Tell me what I'm missing.
Yeah.
And we'll go back and forth. Now, a lot of writers don't like that process because they need to be in their zone
Right.
and they don't like to be criticized when they're in the zone because it stops them from their work. And I
Yeah.
totally appreciate that type of because I get like that too. Like, please do not criticize it right now because it's very raw. But
Yeah.
then there are other times that I just need someone to be like, give me some critical feedback.
Yeah.
But for the most part, for most of the time, okay, if I can't do that, I have a file of unfinished work. And maybe in a year from now, 6 months to a year, something will hit me for it.
Yeah.
So there's that. Or I like to just move away, go
Hmm.
watch some TV, go watch a
Yeah.
movie, go for a hike. And I like to like clear my head and come back to it. So I have all kinds of I'm a little weird, I feel like sometimes, because I definitely try not to dwell. I'll move on faster and I'll get a lot of pieces. Like right now I have like three different things moving along, and three, someone over here is criticizing that piece and kind of tearing it apart. And
Hmm.
then I have this one thing I'm stuck on, like I'm in like hell over it
Yeah.
because I'm so determined to finish it.
Do you have to have like a special kind of mindset, you think, like to, because it's all they're all your babies, right? I mean, it's like you put something out there, like you mentioned earlier, like don't touch it right now because it's still fresh, but like,
Yeah.
do you have to have like a special mindset, do you think, to if in the event that you wrote something that you really just feel is great, or you feel like, oh, this really clicks, this really works, and someone just kind of tears it up, and you're just, okay, well, I can't use, I mean, how do you separate, like how do you let go of that, or do you not sometimes, do you override that sometimes?
It's half and half for me.
Hmm.
I have written, like for instance, there was this film that I wrote last year, and the director was reading it, and we were having this meeting, just me and him, and he had his own vision, and I felt like, okay, you're not understanding where I'm going here,
Yeah.
as a writer. So I get into those cases where they're like, yeah, this is not working for the way like we want to go forward. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But like for a book too, like when I'm in the middle, like I've just finished the first draft of a novel, say, and an editor gets it. And I like creative editors. I don't just like grammar editors, because I
Yeah.
like them to go, this is not working.
Right.
There, I would say 50-50. When I get a red line back, when I get it redlined, I will nix almost 50% of their suggestions.
Hmm.
Most of the time, because I just have to take a big gulp and swallow and go, but I really believe in this.
Sure.
But I think, or sometimes I'll like sit on it and I'll go, God, are they right? Are they wrong? I think it's just, you have to take a step back from your own work and trust
Hmm.
that you are too attached to it. And if
Yeah.
something really isn't working, listen to other people.
Right.
That took a long time for me, even when I was younger. Now that I'm kind of got a lot of years in, I've kind of I've gotten more used to it, and I enjoy the process.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, when I first got into it, I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
This works, and they're like, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been there. My wife will do that with me. She'll give me she'll listen to a show I did, or she'll do something, and she'll give me, she's very raw, which I love, but she's very raw and honest. She's like, "No, that sucks. Do it again." Or it's like, "Oh, but it's like, and I'll put hours into what I just did." And it's like, "Wait." And I sometimes I get, I get very kind of like adversarial with it. It's like, "No, it doesn't. It's like, this is mine," and I feel like I want her to just
Yeah.
praise it, but you have to like, and I'm very guilty of that. Like, I'm very bad at that. And so I really need to work on stepping back and like, no, okay, if she says it's not good, then I need to maybe look at it from a listener point of view, or a viewer, or whatever the case is, and just see kind of where we're at with it, instead of just
Y-
praising everything I do.
yeah. It sometimes it's like a punch to the gut, and you're just like, but they're probably right,
Yeah.
maybe in some way. And that's why I say it's kind of 50-50, because sometimes I'll bend a little, even on that comment. I may not take the whole thing, but I'll take some of it. My husband is the last person to read before anything gets published. So, he is a nightmare in a good way when it comes to reviewing.
Yeah.
He's like super thorough. He, so, someone asked me one day how I knew how to jumpstart a camper. And I was like, duh. I walked into my husband's office and said, how do I jumpstart?
Yeah.
But I use him for those things. But I mean, just like you and your wife, he'll read something and I'll be like, so, especially just a scene that I think, oh my God, I'm really feeling this scene. And he'll go, yeah, it's great. And that's it.
Yeah, there's
And
just
I'm
nothing.
like,
Yeah.
dude, my
Yeah.
heart and soul is in this. You are ripping my, just stomp on me. Why don't you? And he's like,
Yeah.
what, honey? I think it's great. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but that's not what I was looking.
Yeah, I want instant praise. Yeah, I mean, I feel the same
Yeah.
way. She'll say that, and it's like, oh no, it's really good, and that's all. And what
And
else? What else? You got to give me more than just a few words. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I think the one of the really great things is and this will kind of segue into the final questions for the night. But it's just kind of like talking about finding that sweet spot, right? Like you have to walk that fine line. It's like, okay, well, I know when to stand by something that I really love, that I feel really should be in the story, should be part of my, the final product. But you also have to know when to kind of back off and be like, okay, maybe this sucks. I got to rework it, or maybe I got to redo something. So it's like, it's a real interesting sweet spot you have to kind of find. You have to kind of live in. I think the people that find that sweet spot are probably often the most successful, because they know how to sort of take criticism well, and they know how to stand up for themselves when when they feel that they need to.
yeah, I think that's the big thing, especially for anyone out there who does want to put their art out there. Is criticism is going to come your way whether you like it or not,
Yeah.
and it's just a matter of how you face it.
The last question I want to ask is, and again, every time I have an author on, every time I have someone that's been doing something for a very long time, I want to ask them to kind of talk to the younger folks that are going to be listening to this, because we tend to skew a little younger on the show, which I love. But for people out there that want to do what you do, whether it's writing or maybe getting into the entertainment industry, producing content either for for themselves or for others, what advice would you give those people?
Just start.
Yeah.
Just do it. If you want to do a podcast, if you want to start producing a podcast, get the cheapest equipment you can.
Yeah. You got to start somewhere.
You
Agreed.
got to start somewhere. Do not go and invest in thousands of dollars of equipment. Go and call his name is Barry Funkhauser on Twitter and Instagram. I'm just going to throw him out there. He's one of my best friends in the industry. I bet he would give you guidance.
Yeah.
Funk. Do you know who Funk is?
I've heard the name, actually.
So
Yeah.
I trust him with everything. Like, say you want to start a podcast.
Right.
I trust him.
Yeah.
And he will give you it. So anyway, I'm just joking. You don't have to reach out to him on social media. But the point is, don't go invest it. Just do it. Get that first step in and just start.
Yeah.
Don't, come up with a plan. I always say, have a plan before you start so you don't get stuck and get stagnant, and really make a plan and make those first steps. If
Yeah.
you want to start writing, whether it's a screenplay or a novel, just start writing.
Yeah.
I keep a notebook on me full time, and I also record a ton into my phone.
Mm.
But when I have a thought, it goes down into a notebook. My house is full of notebooks of my doodles.
That's a great tip.
And I keep a notebook by my bed.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing like laying in bed right when I'm about to fall asleep and something is in my brain and I got to get it down.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, just make the first step in following that, because you never know where it's going to lead you.
Great advice. Marie, can you plug your website, your Twitter? Where can we pick up the books? Where can we hear you? All that jazz.
Thanks. So my website is marielanza.com, Lanza. And I'm on Twitter, Marie_Lanza, Instagram, Facebook, and all my books are on Amazon. You can also get autographed copies on my website. Tiffany and I are still doing our podcast. It's on with Barry Funkhauser. It's on connectpal.com/fishbowl. and we still try to get stuff out there. But yeah, Twitter is my big Twitter and Instagram. I'm always on.
Awesome. Long live the fishbowl. Links to everything we discussed tonight in the show notes for this episode. This has been a pleasure. As I said, it's surreal. I've always wanted to do this with you. Thank you so much for giving me some time. I appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for thinking about me.
If you made it all the way through our conversation tonight, I want to thank you for hanging out with me and my friends. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Please visit us on social media as we post each new conversation as they air. News, show information, and much more. Go to facebook.com/me and my friends pod. On Twitter, you can search the handle me my friends pod. And on Instagram, you can find us by searching the handle @me and my friends pod. If you enjoyed our conversation tonight, please do me a favor and head to iTunes to rate us and leave us a review. As a brand new podcast, we need all the help we can get, and your time is truly appreciated. Me and My Friends is produced by Vanessa Williamson and edited by me, Chris Williamson. This episode of the podcast featured the original song Solitude by producer Redeman. The opinions on Me and My Friends are those of the individual guests and may not reflect those of Chris Evan Films Incorporated. Chris Evan Films Incorporated is not affiliated with the films or clips referred to herein. Any audio clips used in this podcast are the intellectual property of their respective copyright holders. They are included here for the purposes of education and entertainment, and no infringement is ever intended. Me and My Friends is an exclusive trademark of Chris Evan Films Incorporated and may not be used without the express written consent of Chris Evan Films Incorporated. All rights reserved. Me and My Friends is a Chris Evan Films production. Copyright 2020. All rights reserved.